where it says Stone Bridge, sort of toward the lower right part of the middle part of the map here. Everybody find where it says Stone Bridge on this map? The Confederates had one regiment and part of another on the high ground, which you can't see now because of the trees. At that time you could have seen it. This would not have been as wooded then as it is now. It would have been open. But they had nobody else farther upstream. And you'll see there's some other fords. There's one called Farm Ford, just upstream a ways, one called Poplar Ford, a little farther, and then Sudley Ford and Sudley Springs Ford, way around toward the upper left part of the map. Was
the grass really high too, or was it low?
Well, this land would have been grazed more by animals then, so the grass probably wouldn't have been as high either. And some of it would have been crops. This was all agricultural land. That took extra time, and finally McDowell was ready to issue his orders on the 20th, and the orders actually were pretty smart. He would have one division carry out a demonstration against the bridge itself. That was Tyler's division, and you can see that marked here on the map, on the sort of toward the right part of the map. While he would send Heintzelman's division and Hunter's division, and then behind them Howard's brigade, on a long flanking march to come in behind the Confederate position, to take them in the rear and the flank. But again, with these untrained troops, the execution was not very well carried out. And even the planning had some defects, because what McDowell did was have the troops ready to go at about 2 o'clock in the morning. But he first sent out Tyler's troops, the ones that are going to demonstrate against the bridge. They had the shortest distance to go. They shouldn't have gone first, because by going first they delayed Hunter and Heintzelman by a couple of hours. So the initial idea was for them to have moved around and come across Bull Run and come in on the rear of the Confederates at dawn. But in fact they got started late, and then the guide that was sent with them made them go all the way around, as you see on this map here, and cross at Sudley Ford, rather than the initial idea of crossing at Poplar Ford. Now the guide, I think, actually got kind of lost, because we're talking about roads that are really like cow paths. And to have several thousand troops marching on those roads, those paths, is not easy, and it's dark. So instead of crossing at dawn, which would have been 4:30, 5 o'clock a.m., they didn't get across until about 9:30 in the morning, as indicated by this map, and they're crossing at Sudley Springs Ford, I'm sorry. And interestingly enough, there's a church right there, Sudley Church. And the parishioners in that church were surprised that Sunday morning when suddenly all of these Union troops start showing up, marching right past their church. Now in the meantime, Tyler's orders here at the bridge were to demonstrate against the Confederate defensive position on the bridge, to make them think that that's where the main crossing was going to happen. And you can see that Tyler has a lot of artillery there, and the Confederates have only a couple of guns up on the hill. Well, they get involved in an artillery duel starting at dawn, when it's light enough to start shooting. And the infantry brigades, Schenck and Keyes and Sherman, send skirmishers forward to the edge of the stream, a little bit out there, to kind of pop away at the Confederates on top of the hill. But the Confederate commander there, a guy named Evans, his nickname from West Point was Shanks Evans, because he had very thin legs. Shanks Evans eventually figured out that this was not a serious effort to cross the bridge, because they just kept firing away at each other without doing anything else. In the meantime, the Confederates had set up on some high ground several miles downriver, a signal station. And the officer in the signal station was a guy named Porter Alexander, who later turns out to be one of the Confederacy's top artillery experts, but he was in the Confederate Signal Corps at this time. And he is up there and he's looking this way,